This is Mike Zay with TenantBase. We got Frank Marmo, one of our partner brokers out of the Chicago area, with Townline Realty Advisors and Real Estate Advisors.
There you go.
So my bad on that. So Townline Real Estate Advisors. And Frank has been with us for a little under a year on our platform. Has had some early success, some challenges as we all do, and we wanted him to kind of give his perspective to others and hopefully help us understand what's working, what's not working, TenantBase and otherwise. So Frank, thanks for joining. And we typically will always start kind of with a background question. So just if you want to walk everybody through, where you are today with Townline, and then how did you get here? How did you start in the industry?
Sure.
What was kind of your journey?
So, out of college, my original background was accounting. CPA, I worked for a CPA firm, a small CPA firm in the River North area of Chicago. I was there for a little over 2 years, and then got into industry. So my first stop in commercial real estate was with a well-established, commercial real estate firm in the Chicagoland area, around for 100 years, Draper and Kramer. I started out in their property accounting department, and they managed multifamily, retail, office. So I did property accounting work, did the books for different properties. I probably would have anywhere from 15 to 25 properties over the course of my career that I would do the accounting with and deal directly with property managers, ownership. And then I moved on to another property management company there after another property management company, Chicagoland area, a few years later. And then I hooked up then with an investment advisory firm in Chicago. And that's kind of where I got into the acquisitions and asset management type role. We provided equity dollars for operators and developers, the funds that we manage for real estate investments or development. So essentially, I basically worked as an owner's rep for a real estate fund. We managed money for like Taft-Hartley funds, private equity funds. And so we did a variety of deals that we put money out for, multifamily, some office, some industrial product. And then, I got my broker's license, and Townline Real Estate Advisors came into existence around 2014.
Okay.
And but I wasn't doing it full time. I was kind of just doing some stuff. I was a small limited partner in a couple of deals where I did the asset management, property management. I helped with the underwriting. But I had a daytime job in commercial real estate with another company. Fast forward then to 2021, 22, that partnership group then started liquidating all those assets, and they all sold off, and kids are out of college. I got them all off the payroll, told my wife, I think I'm going to go off on my own now completely. And so I launched Townline. Even though it existed as an LLC, I did it full-time then, starting in 2024, full-time in 2024. So I've been focusing on three aspects in my business: commercial property management, tenant representation, obviously through TenantBase, and investment sales. So right now my portfolio consists of a number of office and retail properties, and some industrial properties. And I'd also manage a handful of commercial associations for property owners, which is a nice little, venture. And obviously through TenantBase, I probably in the last year and a half I've been with you, probably did like a handful of deals through you guys, and then some of my own. So that's kind of my history in commercial real estate. I kind of had the full gamut of, kind of on the principal side, and then obviously on the brokerage side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's good content. So what do you think about this? Because I mean, we see this a lot, where, especially on our platform, where I think it kind of attracts people who have come from kind of more diversified backgrounds. So do you feel like now that you're doing more brokerage work, that the property management and other things you did, has that helped you a lot when you're thinking about working with tenants, doing tenant rep specifically? Or was that an entirely new skill set where you kind of like, okay, that knowledge has helped, but it's a very different way of kind of coming at it?
Well, I think they complement each other. From the property management side, how a landlord ownership thinks.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're helping a tenant find a property or space to lease, you have the benefit of the knowledge of, well, this is how an owner is going to think, and this is how an owner is going to want to think about your business and the structure. A lot of tenants, especially those leasing for the very first time, really are not knowledgeable of what's out there. I want to pay this type of rent, but I want this much space. And I'm like, well, that's not realistic. So let's get realistic to what the market is today. I think that's kind of been helpful from the property management side, bringing it into the tenant rep side. The knowledge of, I know how landlords think and what they're going to want from you, so let's negotiate something that's going to be practical and get to a deal at the end of the table, at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's always, if both sides walk away from a deal a little unhappy, it's a great deal.
Sure. Yeah. I see that a lot. I mean,
you get everything you want, either side. And so if you walk away with what you think is most important to you, but you're a little unhappy and he's a little unhappy, it's probably a very good deal for both parties.
Yeah. So we talk to a lot of brokers that are like, hey, I've got to stay, I was trained this way. I live my life this way. It's what I know. I'm staying fixated as a specialist. And I would describe you, maybe you wouldn't describe yourself this way, more as a generalist. Like, you're doing a couple of different things. You've got different space types, different programs. So what would you say you like about being in that generalist capacity? How does that make you successful? How does that help you build a better business than the person sitting there saying downtown, or maybe not downtown Chicago anymore, or downtown in general, but hey, I do 5,000 square feet and up, class A office in this area. And that's all I do. What do you think are the benefits to the generalist approach now that you've lived it for, years?
The generalist approach, I think, helps you kind of see more deals, do more deals, and help different types of clients. Obviously, the market today is, Chicagoland area. I'm getting a lot of folks looking for, industrial flex space. That's hot right now. And, the issue there is availability. There's more demand than there is supply. The office sector is quite the opposite. I mean, there's more supply than there is demand. Even through TenantBase, I really don't get a lot of office people looking for office because the work from home is still there. Retail, obviously you can't get a haircut online. You can't eat online. So that's always going to be a viable tenant option out there. At least in the Chicagoland suburban market, I mean, you're seeing a lot more tightening in retail, and landlords are not, giving concessions as much as they may have done maybe as little as 6 months ago and a year ago. It's a little tighter. Office is open-ended. I mean, lots of availability, but there's not a lot of takers in that space. And like I said, industrial, been getting a lot of those referrals from you.
Yep.
And those spaces go faster than you think. I mean, you get a client looking for a 10,000, 5,000, and you go to all the resources out there, CoStar and all that, and oh man, I just leased that space. It's only
Sure.
been on the market 2 days. So it's space, industrial flex space goes pretty quickly. And so I tell clients, if you're interested in this space, let's move fast. Because a week from now, it may not be available anymore. Does
Yeah.
that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I think basically, it seems adaptive to market conditions. Everyone's journey is different. And if you are in a cycle where you've been working on a big team doing only office transactions for a certain type of user, that's probably where you stay. But I think for a lot of people, especially the people that we see on our platform and that seems to resonate with, it's more of a mixed approach, especially as we've gotten out of the major markets as well. And I would define suburban anywhere as not the major market,
Right.
as well, because like you said, I mean, it's the average business stack that we see, and it's really just what's out there searching. I think it's very natural. It's organic in a sense of what businesses are looking for. The stack ranking for the last 5 to 10 years, I don't think it's changed after COVID that much. It's been retail, closely followed by industrial, and office is the third kind of the level. And I guess going back 10 years, pre-COVID, office, we saw a lot more of that. There was a lot more demand. I remember in 2018 and 2019,
Right.
how you described flex industrial is how we felt about office. If you didn't have your everything perfect, you were going to get outbid for the office space you wanted at that point in time. It was like a competition to win the space, not only find good space for your business, but to like win the deal on a desirable location was a big process. So I think brokers have had to adapt. A lot of the people we work with share similar feedback of, look, it's both. I think it's both a benefit now, but also kind of a necessity if you're not set up as one of the specialist operators. So that makes sense. What you mentioned kind of the transition going from, kind of you phrased it as like the day job in commercial real estate, which I really think, if I'm hearing you correctly, you went from having some kind of stability in your earnings or predictability in your earnings and income to going more into the commission only path kind of later in life. How has that journey been for you? Is that accurate? You kind of went skewed more to the commission only world?
When I went kind of full-time Townline,
Yeah.
I had some property management business that was already coming with me before I pulled the trigger. So the property management business is, that's the stable income that you get month to month, and obviously the brokerage is the upside, is the pops that you get. So I like a combination of both. The property management is, stable, continuous, especially the commercial associations I manage. They probably won't go away unless, I do a terrible job and all the property owners say, we want someone else. But, that's a a retail building, an office building, they come and go because a buyer's going to buy, holds on to it for 5 to 7 years. He sells. Maybe the new owner retains you, maybe he doesn't. So, I look at that as kind of nice, stable, consistent income. The brokerage side is obviously the pop, where you kind of make some nice coin at the end of the day. So I like complementing that. Other brokers I've talked to say, oh, and I would never do any property management. And I was like, well, you gotta budget your time and hard work doesn't bother me, and I'm very good at time management and all that. So I enjoy both functions of it because I think they complement each other and can bring you other business. And it's happened to me in the property management side. Is I've got some brokerage business off of that because I'm managing it, but I've got this asset over here. Can you help me sell? Yeah.
So, there's a compounding there if you do it the right way. I think most of the oversimplification, or just the way that I hear that a lot from people, is like, I have to protect my time, and my time has to go to what I know is going to be the thing that moves the needle the most for me and my family or my team or whatever it is. every year. And so a lot of people do struggle with the time management side of it, which is why they protect themselves, which makes sense. We deal with a lot of that at TenantBase, where it's, hey, look, a lot of these people want help. You have to decide where you can really spend your time and kind of dive in and do that effectively. Because most of the brokers who work with us, they're very service minded. They want to be a resource for everybody. But at the end of the day, you're doing this for a living, and you have to kind of make those judgment calls and things like that. So that makes sense. So what makes you? I mean, you mentioned time management. What makes you a better time manager that you think that others? Are there some things that you have in place for yourself, or is it just something that comes naturally to you?
Well, it does come naturally. I get up early in the morning. I'm up by 5-ish.
Okay.
Check emails real quick, and go work out, and then start up again. So I spend some time. You spend some time on the property management side that you need to do, and then you're prospecting. I mean, I'm calling people, whether it comes through TenantBase. I call up. I mean, I initially start with an email introducing myself and follow up with a phone call the next day. Hey, did you get my information?
Yep.
I don't know. I said, well, check the email. I emailed you about 11:30 yesterday. It's coming from this email. And most times people go into their email if I catch them at their desk and we talk. But yeah, I mean, I stay on a schedule of what I want to do that day. I have due dates on the property management side that I got to maintain. But I stay strictly in commercial. I don't do any residential or multifamily. Yep. That's the headache. I agree with folks that do that. It's tough to do. I know guys that own apartment buildings and that property management is just horrible. I mean, the things they tell me that they got to deal with. But anyhow, so time management for me, it comes rather naturally. I don't like getting behind on stuff. And I have no problem putting in 12, 14-hour days. When you work for yourself, nobody's telling you got to be here or there at a certain time. I mean, if I got to take care of something, I take care of it, and I'm right back at my stuff that I need to get done for the day. So yeah, I mean, it's great being your own boss. The discipline is you can't get lazy. You just gotta keep working at it, because being your own boss, you're looking for a new job, quote unquote, every day. Whether it's new property management, a new tenant rep assignment. Hey, this guy wants to sell his building. I want to give him a BOV. Maybe get that assignment to sell. So you just you're looking for a new job every day. So you gotta stay at it. And clearly, obviously, you're going to get some negative feedback, and you can't let that disappoint you. You're going to get a lot of no's, but consistency and repetitiveness and follow-up is important, I think. And I make sure I do that a lot.
Oh, that's great. I think the thing you said that I always smile, because I've had great waves of it in my life and times where I've underperformed it, is just, if you can just be up at 5 a.m. and put in a little bit of time before the world gets going, that is just one of the best things you can possibly do. And it's amazing what you can accomplish between 5 and 7 a.m. before most people are kind of doing anything. So that's great. So talk to me about, now that you're doing more brokerage, I know you're doing other things, but talking about, I'm a tenant you're working with, or we meet for the first time. What is that person getting? What are you finding is making you successful at building a rapport with that client, winning their trust, and executing a transaction? What are the things that you think you do well, your skills, your strengths, whatever you want to talk about there?
Providing data and market information, I think is very important. And then obviously what I do for TenantBase. So when I get a lead that I want, I immediately follow up with an email. I send them my brochure, which basically tells me everything I do and, my experience and whatnot. And I attach with them a questionnaire, which I say, hey, you can fill out, send back to me, or I put a Calendly link on all my messages. So if you want to schedule a call right away on my calendar, and we'll set something up. But I say, here's a questionnaire that kind of helps me with what you're looking for, you know, how big of a space, what is your budget, what's your timing, or we can go on the phone and fill this out together. Because then I can give them accurate market information. I want to be in Elgin Industrial. Okay. Well, here's what the market is right now. It's, you know, this square footage is predominantly available. You know, this is kind of where the asking rate is, you know, so your monthly nut will be, you know, between this and this.
Yep.
You know, a lot of people, what I find at least those that are kind of not familiar with leasing a property for the first, you know, over multiple times, they have a difficult time under dollars per square foot. So I want 10,000 square feet, but I only want to pay, you know, 5,000 a month. Well, you know, I don't, you know, in this market, that's probably not probable. What is your budget? So I try to, you know, I try to understand what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And then break it down to, well, this would probably be your best availability based on these parameters. If you can stretch that budget a little bit, are you willing to more lease term? You know, things like that. You know, what's your financial stability? You know, if you're a startup, you know, you're probably going to pay a little more rent, or you're going to have a, you know, personal guarantee that may stretch over a longer course of the lease. You know, a larger security deposit. If you have been in business for 20 years, you know, you might have a 1 month security deposit, and you got more leverage with the landlord if you're willing to do more term, whatnot. So I try to walk people through the different ways to get the best deal within the parameters of what they want, where they want to be.
Do you find that, a couple questions there. One, just very quickly, do you get a lot of people that use that link to book meetings? How effective do you think that is?
It's about 30% people have done that.
Okay, that's great. That's really good. That's awesome.
You know, and then there's obviously some just, you know, I call them, and like I said before, I'm already working with another broker. I don't remember going on that website. So don't worry about it. Here, you have my information. If it doesn't work out, give me a call back. And actually, one person did call me back. So on that, you're not going to bat 1,000 in this industry. That's a given. And so, you know, if you can, so on cold calls, I was told, and maybe you agree, or, you know, if you call 100 people and you get anywhere from 5 to 10 positives, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get 50%, 70%. That's just not possible. You're going to get a lot of hangups. You're going to get a lot of people not picking up, not interested. 5 to 10. So again, it goes back to consistency and follow-up. That's the key to this game. And you know, can't get discouraged from no's. And try to turn a no into, well, how can this be a maybe down the road or a yes down the road without being too overburdensome to the potential client.
Exactly. It's a journey with a lot of these relationships. And then the other thing I was going to ask you, so when you're going through, because I think some of the things that some brokers have challenges with, particularly through us, and we always try to talk about it a little bit, is like, okay, they take it as like these businesses, they're just trying to solve the problem. They need a place to operate. And like you said, okay, hey, I want to spend, I think I need 10,000 square feet and I want to spend $5,000. There's scenario A, which is like, what you're trying to do just isn't going to be possible in market norms, and it would take some kind of outlier solution. But maybe scenario B and C is that one of those variables is inaccurate or requires a little bit more understanding. Maybe they think they need 10,000 square feet because they've heard X, Y, and Z from somebody else, and they really need 7 or 6 or whatever the number is. Mm-hmm. And the other side would be like, hey, maybe they say, okay, I want to spend 5,000 a month, but they're thinking about some pre-number that doesn't include, extra costs that would actually make it more comparable with market or whatever misunderstanding there is. Sometimes I think people get overly frustrated because these are sophisticated businesses or business people that know what they're doing in their lane. But when they approach the commercial real estate market, very rarely Are they doing it a lot? Because most people operate one business that leases space every 3 to 5 years. And I guess it's a long way of asking, like, how often do you feel like you get into a situation with a tenant where if you took it at face value, it's like, this could never work. But then you start getting them to tell you more and you learn more about their business and you kind of figure out one of those things where, hey, there is a path here because, they just didn't understand the market. And by educating and listening, you're able to kind of guide them as to what's possible. Do you see that happening, in your conversations?
Yeah. So, one example is a client was, and I'll give you two examples of, we can make a deal work. Another example is you might want to wait. One was because what I tend to ask a lot of folks looking for space for the first time is, what is your financial capacity? What is your credit like? What are your personal finance? I don't need specifics to tell me over the phone, and in conjunction of what they're looking for and what they can want to pay in rent. And so I had one person who says, well, my credit's really bad and, but I can't pay more than this in rent, and I'm like, you might want to fix your credit first. Okay. And, because I'm trying to help you get to a deal because, you get to a point where you like a space and the landlord likes your business use. And I said, they're going to do it. They're going to want to run a credit report, want personal financials. If that doesn't check out, they're not going to sign a lease with you. So, I always try to tell folks that if your credit's bad, fix that. What are your financials look like? If you can fix that. A lot of people don't understand. So I don't know, my rule of thumb is you can pay anywhere from 15 to 20% of your revenue towards rent on a space. So I ask people, what is your projected revenue for your business? Because they seem to think they can only afford a certain amount. And I'm like, well, if you're generating X, you should be able to pay any, general expenses you should be able to afford this on a monthly basis. And that helps me break that down to, well, here's the square footage based on this rent that'll make sense for you. So that's kind of how I walk through with. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, a little bit. I just was curious kind of how often you kind of feel like if you took it at face value, kind of on what their initial stated needs are, how much that shifts as you kind of get a better understanding of what they're actually looking for and kind of helping them understand.
Yeah, I mean, the business use itself is a question. I ask right away. I've had a few oddballs, and I'm like, and one was I was like, I don't think I'm going to find a landlord that's going to want to lease for your use. But it's talking through it. I find there are more ways to say yes and help them than say, I don't think I can help you with this. Does that make sense? That's basically what you're asking.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and so as you're kind of looking at this, we've talked about like retail and industrial trends. I mean, now there's AI in the mix. Who knows what that's going to do to office and jobs and all these other things. What do you kind of see over the next couple of years in your market, or generally, whichever way you want to go with it, about just kind of how people are leasing space, finding space, working with brokers? Do you see a lot of change, or do you see kind of extrapolation of what we're dealing with now?
Well, I mean, AI can help brokers. I don't think they can replace us. I think occupiers will need us to get a better deal done. I think as we move forward, people are going to find ways to do more with less. I just think, costs have gone up. Not only supplies and materials, but you got gasoline going up, just transportation, all that. I think things are just more expensive. Insurance, I mean, to get business insurance through to get a space, you gotta have liability insurance, and those costs have gone up. And just talking to some insurance brokers, that's just all around the whole market. The whole industry's gone up. So everything is more expensive. So I think, unless you're a top-notch law firm that needs to be in an ultra class A space in downtown Chicago, where money really is kind of no object because of their clientele. I think people are looking to be efficient and, do more with less. And whether that's less space, less personnel, it's efficiency is a big word now. People don't want to take on more than they think they can handle. And that's kind of the trend I see now, and it probably will continue into the future. So, I mean, that's kind of one thing. I think, I don't know I don't have the office is the part that I don't know. I mean, there are folks out there that will tell you it's going to come back, and they're betting big and they're buying properties cheap right now, thinking they can turn that around. I mean, that's happening in downtown Chicago. There are some folks buying office buildings, and their goal is to convert them to residential. But I think doing that will probably help the existing office that's available, and maybe that'll ramp up a little bit. But yeah, that one I don't know what the answer is to that. There's so many thoughts out there on that. COVID really did a whammy on that. And I don't know. Here we are 6 years later, and we're still struggling with that sector. So I don't know. Retail is surprisingly coming back. There isn't a lot of great space available in the suburbs. So I tend to focus in Will County and DuPage County and Southern Cook County and the Chicagoland market. And, there's spaces available, but the landlords now are, they're pushing back on concessions. The limited free rent, they're not giving you a lot of TI. They want, maybe a little longer term lease than, 2 or 3 years. So, things are changing there. But, I mean, it's efficiency probably on both ends and cost control.
Yeah. Well, kind of on that note, I mean, I know, obviously, I appreciate you taking the time to kind of share these insights, and I'll make this the last question for you. So, I mean, we know you're using TenantBase, as part of your process and kind of on the efficiency path. What are you finding other tools, platforms, things that you're doing as a broker that are helping you be more efficient? And if so, is it the AI models? What are you looking at right now to help you leverage your time and kind of be a better service provider?
I mean, there's obviously TenantBase. I mean, the CoStars and the CREXIs and all that out there. I mean, there's a few other skip trace programs out there that help. Okay. Some are better than others to break down the LLC ownership and who's the actual folks behind that LLC to help find a true owner. So yeah, I mean, I use a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I think you can never have too many tools or options out there to find ways to get new prospects. Yeah, AI is great. I use it to help formulate my thoughts and ideas, and then I tweak it. I think it's a great tool. I don't think it can replace brokers. I truly don't believe that. It can only help us and make us more efficient, going back to that word.
I can give you my we are using a lot of different things to try to be more efficient, to use your word, on behalf of our local broker partners and the businesses that we see on the platform. And at the end of the day, there's some things that are really, really impacted immediately by by introducing AI and technology to the process. And then there are things that would be extremely difficult. You mentioned just now 4 or 5 different places to go get information. The ability to jump and have access to all of those and then compile it, effectively. Yes, theoretically it could be done, but right now, knowing who those platforms are and how the information is walled off, among many other things, creates a lot of challenges. And I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to see is how to make this whole thing better for this interaction, because at the end of the day, access to your local commercial real estate market is it's not all online, it's not all offline. It's kind of a combination, and it's having someone living and breathing it on your behalf. Obviously, we believe the easiest and best path for most businesses is the finding a local commercial real estate broker to work with. And so, we're trying to empower that relationship with everything we're doing from a technology perspective. So, I tend to agree on a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of transactions, that whether they're really small or the tenant just has no interest, that's always going to be there. But, for the most part, there's a lot of opportunity. So, I really appreciate you doing this. It's always cool to hear someone's story and the takeaways of what you've had. I guess I said that was the last question. I'll give you one more just to end on. What would you say to someone else who's done other versions of commercial real estate, but has never done tenant rep before and is thinking, hey, I'd like to start being in brokerage. That seems like a way to go. What would you say to that person? Advice, guidance, whatever perspective you'd want to share. Someone who's thinking about getting into tenant rep, doing some brokerage work on top of other commercial real estate things they've done in the past.
Get knowledgeable. If you want to be a generalist, get knowledgeable. You don't have to be an expert, but get knowledgeable on the different property types and the different markets you wanna play in. Consistency is important, and clearly don't get discouraged, because you're not gonna hit home runs every day, and you're gonna strike out a lot, but you're gonna start getting some singles and doubles just by being consistent and following up. And it's a tough business, obviously, for everybody. So that would be my advice. Obviously, you got to know something about commercial real estate and understanding how leases work, and gross rents and base rent, gross rent, triple net rent, the base year rent, and all that. And so you can explain that intelligently to potential clients, because that's the other aspect. They go on LoopNet and they see all these different numbers, and I'm like, I can explain to them that, well, what you're looking at is a gross number, so that's going to be higher. That's saying triple net, so you got to find out what the CAM and tax is there to add on to that. So anyhow, so get some knowledge, obviously, and then be consistent and don't get discouraged.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing that over time, and it's the number one thing I've noticed around the industry my entire career is just the people who have just stayed with it and work hard. It has a way of working out for them. So it's not easy to do that. It's easy when you look backwards and say, oh, that person's 40 years old and they're making X a year, and they seem to have it on all figured out. But first of all, it's hard every year, and second of all, it took 15 whatever years to get there.
Right.
Of doing it. So, it's great. I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate you doing this, and best of luck. Hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you. And thank you, William.
All right. Thanks, Frank. We'll talk soon.